Hi everyone. In this video, we'll take a look at how you can point your browser to an Amazon's EC2 instance acting as a proxy so that you can browse the web using some of the benefits of a proxy server. Now, if you're not familiar with what a proxy server is and some of the benefits of a proxy server, we'll go through that very soon. But bulk of the demo or this video is going to be focused on the demo. So if you're already familiar with what a proxy is and its benefits, feel free to jump ahead to the demo. So moving on to why you would want to use a proxy in the first place. So there are quite many reasons that one might want to use that. These are kind of like the top reasons that I personally use a proxy for, or I can think of why one would want to use a proxy for. Typically, it stems from the fact that anytime you access a website, they typically track you based on your IP, amongst many other capabilities or things like your browser fingerprinting, and various others, and including things like third-party cookies. But one of the ways that you can protect yourself is by concealing your IP address or your real IP address, and that's one of the benefits that a proxy server can give you. And also by masking your IP address as one from a different region, you can bypass some of the content blocking or geographic restrictions. So for example, if you're traveling and say for example you're in the UK but you want to access US specific sites and content, or vice versa. And the other most common thing I use a proxy for is to bypass any rate limits. So some sites, they offer a certain free service, but it only allows you to say access the site 5 times a day or 5 calls or various others. So you can bypass a lot of these rate limits and even use it for things like web scraping, just to make sure that your actual IP address is not blacklisted or comes under the radar. Again, there are very many other reasons that you can use a SOCKS or a proxy for. Keep in mind that a proxy is fundamentally different from something like a VPN, but given that we are using AWS over an SSH tunnel, and obviously that SSH tunnel is encrypted, that gives you a lot of the kind of like similar capabilities of a VPN, but still using it as a SOCKS proxy. The other reason I like using Amazon's proxy is you're only paying for that proxy by the second, as opposed to a fixed monthly cost with a service provider that gives you a proxy server. So again, there are a lot of benefits to using AWS as a SOCKS5 proxy. So with that said, let's go ahead into the demo and let's set things up. So specifically, the steps that we will need to take into consideration is to set up an EC2 instance to begin with, and we'll test out how we can access the EC2 instance over SSH. If you're already familiar with EC2 and setting up, this might be quite trivial for you. Finally, we'll look at how we can expose the port on SSH that we can then use to point our browser to, and then finally all that effort would be in vain if we can't actually browse. So let's go ahead and test it by browsing a website. So let's dive in. Okay, so next on to the EC2 setup. So on the node type, the AMI type, I've selected Ubuntu. Feel free to choose your flavor of Linux. So let's select that. The node instance type, I've just kept it as a T2 Nano, and that should perfectly be fine. Left the configuration details to its default, haven't touched the storage or the tags. The only change have made is for the SSH setting. So hit SSH, and under source, the default would have been custom, but select anywhere. This would obviously be resulting in a warning and a poor practice, because it now allows that node to be accessed over SSH from any PC. So AWS does give you a warning, but that's okay for now. If you prefer, you can select your own IP address or even custom ranges, but for purposes of the demo, I'm selecting it to anywhere. On the review page, let's go ahead and hit launch, and I have an existing key pair that I'm going to be using, and yep, click launch. That should take a couple of minutes. I'm going to pause the video and we'll resume once the node has been provisioned. Okay, it looks like that instance has been provisioned, shows the status as being running. So what you need to do is copy either the DNS or the IP4 public IP, and let's try and connect over SSH. So SSH pointing it to my PEM file. Since I selected Ubuntu in the AMI, the default being Ubuntu, specify the name of the host and hit enter. Yes. Uh, Bang, now we are in, so that's a good sign. So it's working fine. The only change we need to do to get it working as a SOCKS5 proxy is we can specify a -D and a port number, which we can easily remember, and it's hopefully something that's not already being used on your machine. So pick a port number of your choice. What this does is it dynamically allocates a port, an application level dynamic port, which is going to be used by our browser to point it over a SOCKS5 proxy. So just that worked identical to the previous run, and make sure that this window is left open throughout your browsing session. And now let's open browser. So I'm using Firefox as a secondary browser to make these changes. Found that it's much more suitable when we are working with SOCKS5 proxy than something like Chrome, which makes it kind of like a global setting. So again, what you need to do is use the port number that you specified earlier, and here just specify it as manual proxy configuration, SOCKS5 host, specify local host here, and SOCKS5, and the port number that you have specified here, and hit OK. And that should be it. So let's test our connection. So if we go to Google and say what's my IP address, sure enough, it's giving an IP address that's based on where the EC2 instance has been provisioned. So obviously in my case, the EC2 instance has been provisioned in London. This is obviously not my machine's or my ISV provided IP address, and that's obviously what we want. We want to mask our IP address. Let's also try and see location. Where's my IP location? Let's see what it comes up with. Yeah, sure enough, it thinks I'm in London. Obviously, I'm not in London, but again, that's a good thing. So now we have masked our original IP address. So again, you could have selected any of these regions, and you can mask your IP address accordingly. So if you're in UK and you want to mask your IP as being in the US, you can select one of these regions, or vice versa, similar to what I've done, or for that matter, Asia Pacific or elsewhere. So that's it. So what we have done is we have completed the steps needed to connect to a proxy server through AWS and through SOCKS5 capabilities. Hope you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching.